My family told me, "You're not welcome at Christmas. It's parents only now." I smiled and booked a luxury cruise instead. When I shared photos from the deck, their messages wouldn't stop. You know those moments that just gut you? The ones that hit you with such force you feel like a physical blow has landed, and suddenly, nothing is the same. I had one of those. The Christmas my own sister Jennifer decided I wasn't family enough anymore. It was a Tuesday in October. I was at my desk, drowning in quarterly reports, when my phone buzzed with a family group chat notification. Jennifer had sent a message about Thanksgiving plans, which, honestly, felt pretty normal. Mundane even. Then came the follow-up, and that's when my blood ran absolutely cold. Also, she typed, "We need to talk about Christmas this year. Brad and I have been discussing it, and we think it's time to make the holidays more intimate. Just parents and kids. You understand, right, Melissa?" I just stared at my screen, rereading those words until they blurred. Just parents and kids. My stomach dropped. I scrolled up, scrolled down, trying to find some context, some joke, anything to soften the blow. There was nothing. Just those stark, brutal words. My brother, Tyler, jumped in almost immediately, cementing the betrayal. "Yeah, that makes sense. Katie and I were thinking the same thing. The kids are getting older, and we want to focus on our nuclear families." My mom's response dribbled in 20 minutes later. "Well, if that's what you all want. It'll be quieter, I suppose." A quiet, resigned capitulation. Dad? He said nothing. He never did when Jennifer was orchestrating something. Classic. I sat there in my cubicle, surrounded by the monotonous hum of fluorescent lights and the distant tap-tap of keyboards, feeling utterly, completely gutted. 32 years old, successful marketing director, homeowner, and apparently not worthy of Christmas dinner because my uterus was empty. Because I hadn't produced the next generation of nuclear family members. I didn't respond to the group chat. I couldn't. Instead, I just closed my laptop, told my boss I was taking a personal day, a very personal day, and drove home in a daze. My townhouse felt different when I walked in that afternoon. Smaller, somehow. All those carefully chosen throw pillows, the framed photos of my nieces and nephews, who I apparently wasn't close enough to anymore. They suddenly felt like evidence of a life I'd been completely fooling myself about. The rejection stung in ways I couldn't even articulate. Because growing up, I was the one who remembered everyone's birthdays. I sent cards. I showed up to every single soccer game, every dance recital, every school play. When Jennifer had her emergency C-section with her first daughter, who was at the hospital for 16 hours, holding her hand, while Brad handled their older son. Me. When Tyler's wife, Katie, struggled with postpartum depression, who brought them meals 3 times a week for 2 months. Also me. But sure, I wasn't family enough for Christmas. I poured myself a giant glass of wine and opened my laptop. If they wanted to exclude me from their perfect, exclusive, nuclear family holiday, fine. I'd make my own plans. Better plans. And as if on cue, Caribbean cruise packages glowed on my screen like a shimmering, turquoise lifeline. 15 days, leaving December 20th, stops in St. Thomas, Barbados, Aruba, and 3 other islands I'd always dreamed of visiting. The suite with a private balcony cost more than I'd usually spend, but hey, no kids meant disposable income, right? Maybe that was the silver lining they'd so helpfully pointed out. I booked it right then and there, glass of wine in hand, with barely a second thought. The confirmation email arrived, and it felt like victory and heartbreak, all mixed together. For the next few weeks, I said absolutely nothing to my family. Thanksgiving came and went, thick with awkward small talk and Jennifer's pointed comments about how next year would be so much more manageable with fewer people. I just smiled through it all, brought my famous sweet potato casserole that everyone absolutely devoured, and didn't mention my plans once. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife, but I was quiet. I was planning. The question started in early December. Mom called, trying to sound casual, asking what I wanted for Christmas. "Oh, don't even worry about it," I said, my voice breezier than I actually felt. "I'm actually going to be away this year." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. It spoke volumes. "Away where?" she finally managed. "On a cruise," I chirped. "Caribbean. 15 days. Should be amazing." "A cruise by yourself, Melissa?" The disbelief was thick. It seems perfect, actually," I replied, my voice gaining strength. "I figured since I wasn't needed for Christmas anyway, I'd do something nice for myself." She didn't know what to say to that. Neither did Dad when she told him. I knew because he sent me a text later that night. "Your mother is upset." I typed and deleted about 15 responses before settling on, "I'm sure she'll be fine." Jennifer called the next day, her voice tight with barely concealed irritation. "Mom says you're going on some cruise during Christmas." "Yep. Leaving on the 20th. I'm really excited about it." "Don't you think that's a little dramatic?" she scoffed. We just wanted to simplify the holidays. And I'm simplifying my end, too, I shot back. Seems like it all worked out, doesn't it? You're being childish. Her voice was a hiss. I'm being excluded, Jennifer. There's a difference. You made it explicitly clear I'm not part of the inner circle anymore, so I made other plans. What did you expect me to do? Sit home alone eating frozen dinners while you all posed for your perfect family photos? She sputtered something about me twisting her words, but I was done. I just hung up and blocked her number for the rest of the week. I needed peace, and she was certainly not going to provide it. Tyler tried a different approach. He showed up at my house on a Saturday morning with coffee and bagels, his version of an olive branch. We sat at my kitchen table while he fumbled through what was clearly a rehearsed speech about family and traditions. Here's the thing. I interrupted him halfway through, cutting him off mid-sentence. You and Jennifer get to decide who's at your Christmas. That's your right. But I also get to decide how I spend my holiday. And I've decided to spend it somewhere warm and beautiful where nobody makes me feel like I'm less important because I didn't reproduce. Fair, he mumbled, looking incredibly uncomfortable. It's not about that, though. Then what is it about, Tyler? Spell it out for me. I pressed, my voice steady but firm. Because from where I'm sitting, the only thing that changed is that I don't have kids and you both do. He left 20 minutes later, half his bagel uneaten. The cruise departure couldn't come fast enough after that. I packed my bags 3 days early, filling them with sundresses and swimsuits I bought specifically for this trip. I got my nails done. New sunglasses. Downloaded 6 books onto my Kindle. If I was going to be the outcast, I was going to be the most fabulous outcast in the entire Atlantic Ocean. December 20th arrived with cold rain and gray skies, which, honestly, felt fitting. I took an Uber to the port, my 2 suitcases loaded with everything I need for 15 days of complete, blissful freedom. The ship was magnificent, massive, gleaming white, with balconies stacked up the sides like glittering Christmas lights. My suite was on the 7th deck, starboard side, with a private balcony overlooking the ocean. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a king bed with sheets softer than anything I owned, and a bathroom with a rainfall shower that could fit 3 people. I stood on that balcony as the ship pulled away from port, watching Baltimore shrink into the distance, and felt something inside my chest finally, truly loosen. I was free. Midway subscribe line, by the way, if you're finding this story resonates with you, or if you've ever felt like the black sheep of the family, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next, or the other wild stories I've got coming your way. The first 3 days on the ship were spent in a blissful haze of room service, spa treatments, and absolutely no family drama. I got a hot stone massage that left me utterly boneless. I ate lobster tail and filet mignon at the fancy restaurant on the 12th deck. I sat in the hot tub under the stars and chatted with a retired couple from Oregon celebrating their 40th anniversary. They didn't ask me why I was traveling alone. They just invited me to join them for trivia night. Simple. Accepting. On Christmas Eve, we docked in St. Thomas. The island was stunning, all turquoise water and white sand beaches. I went snorkeling in the morning, had conch fritters for lunch at a beachside shack, and spent the afternoon exploring Charlotte Amelie's shops. I bought myself a pair of pearl earrings and a silk scarf I absolutely didn't need. As the sun began to set, I returned to the ship and changed into the red dress I'd packed specifically for Christmas Eve dinner. The formal dining room was decorated with garlands and twinkling lights. I ordered champagne, stone crab claws, and chocolate mousse cake. I ate slowly, savoring every single bite, watching the ocean outside the massive windows turn gold, then violet, then deep indigo. After dinner, I went up to the deck and found a quiet spot near the railing. The air was warm and salty. Music drifted up from somewhere below. I pulled out my phone and snapped a photo of myself with the ocean in the background, the ship's Christmas lights twinkling around me, my champagne glass raised in a defiant toast. I posted it to Instagram with a simple caption, "Merry Christmas from Paradise." Sometimes the best gift is giving yourself permission to prioritize your own happiness. The responses started within minutes. Friends from college, former coworkers, my neighbor, all commenting with heart emojis, and "You look amazing," and "living your best life." I smiled at each one, feeling validated in a way I hadn't expected. Then my phone started buzzing. Text messages. An avalanche. "Mom. Melissa, is that where you are? On a boat? This is how you choose to spend Christmas." Jennifer. "Wow. Real mature, Melissa." Rubbing it in everyone's faces. Tyler. "Dad's asking why you're posting photos instead of calling home." I stared at the messages, my champagne suddenly tasting sour. They had excluded me, explicitly told me I wasn't welcome, and now they were upset that I was having a good time without them? I turned my phone off and shoved it into my purse. I was done letting them ruin this for me. But curiosity, as we all know, is a powerful and insidious thing. An hour later, I turned it back on briefly, and the messages had multiplied like rabbits. 17 new texts for missed calls. Even my Aunt Linda, who I hadn't spoken to in 3 years, had somehow gotten wind of the situation and felt compelled to weigh in. Linda's message was particularly rich. Your mother told me about your little stunt. Very selfish behavior during the holidays, Melissa. Family should come first. I laughed out loud, right there on the deck. Linda, who had missed the last 5 family gatherings because she was too busy, was lecturing me about family priorities. The hypocrisy was almost impressive. Jennifer's messages had evolved from irritation to full-blown guilt-tripping. Mom is really hurt. She keeps asking what she did wrong. Dad won't talk to anyone. I hope you're happy with yourself. What struck me most was how they'd managed to make this all about them. I was the one who had been excluded, but somehow, I was the villain for not suffering quietly. For not spending Christmas alone in my townhouse, scrolling through their perfect family photos, feeling sorry for myself. That's what they'd expected. I realized they wanted me to be hurt, to feel the absence, to learn my place in the family hierarchy. Instead, I was drinking champagne on a cruise ship, and that, apparently, was unforgivable. Tyler's approach was different. He sent me a voice memo, probably thinking hearing his voice would be more effective. I almost deleted it without listening, but something made me press play. Imagine a slight shift in voice, mimicking Tyler. Hey Mel, it's me. Look, I get why you're upset, but you have to understand where we're coming from. Katie and we're exhausted. The kids are at these ages where everything is chaos. We barely have time for ourselves, let alone extended family gatherings. We thought simplifying would help everyone, not just us. And honestly, we figured you'd understand since you don't have kids. You have the freedom to do whatever you want, like this cruise.
We could never do something like that.
So maybe just,
I don't know. Cut us some slack.
Call Mom, at least. She's really upset. Normal voice resumes. I listened to the whole thing twice, feeling my anger shift into something sharper, colder. He genuinely didn't get it. To him, my childless status meant I had endless freedom and, therefore, no feelings that mattered. I could be dropped from Christmas plans because I had options, while they were trapped by their choices and therefore deserved priority. The mental gymnastics were absolutely stunning. I recorded my own voice memo. My words were measured.
Calm.
Imagine a slight shift in voice, mimicking Melissa's firm response. Tyler, I do understand where you're coming from. You're tired and overwhelmed. That's valid. But you know what else is valid? My feelings about being excluded from family traditions I've been a part of for 32 years. You keep framing this like I'm the one being unreasonable, but you literally told me not to come to Christmas. And now you're upset that I made other plans and didn't spend the holiday crying about it. You want me to cut you slack, but you won't extend me the same courtesy. Think about that. Normal voice resumes. I sent it before I could second-guess myself, then powered off my phone completely. No more checking. No more letting them infiltrate my peace. The evening got better from there. I attended a wine-tasting event in one of the ship's lounges, where I met an older woman named Patricia. She was traveling solo after her husband's death 2 years prior. She was probably in her mid-60s, with silver hair cut in a sharp bob and the kind of confident energy that comes from surviving grief and coming out stronger. First solo Christmas? She asked, as we sampled the Pinot Noir. How'd you guess? I laughed, surprised by her directness. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who's been there, she said, her eyes kind. My first Christmas without Robert, my kids wanted me to come stay with them. Insisted, actually. But I knew if I did that, I'd spend the whole time crying in their guest room and making everyone uncomfortable. So, I booked a cruise instead. They were furious. What happened? I asked, leaning in. I went anyway. Had the time of my life. Took a pottery class, learned to play bridge, kissed a man from Toronto on New Year's Eve. She grinned, a wicked sparkle in her eye. When I got back, my kids were still mad. But I was different. Stronger. I'd proven to myself that I could survive the hard things alone, that I didn't need to be saved or managed or protected from my own grief. Do they understand now? Some days. Other days, they still think I'm being difficult. But here's what I've learned, Melissa. You can't live your life trying to meet other people's expectations of how you should handle your pain, or your joy for that matter. They wanted you to be miserable, so they could feel less guilty about excluding you. You refused to play that role. Good for you. We ended up talking for 3 hours. She told me about her late husband, her career as a civil engineer, her complicated relationship with her daughter, who thought she was being reckless with her grief. I told her everything about Jennifer and Tyler, about feeling like I'd failed some test by not having kids, about the group chat message that had started this whole thing. You want to know the real reason they're upset? Patricia said finally, her voice soft but firm. It's not because you skipped Christmas. It's because you're happy. Genuinely happy. and that threatens the narrative they've built about their lives being harder and more meaningful than yours. Her words hit me like a physical thing. She was right. Every message from Jennifer and Tyler carried an undercurrent of resentment that I was here, living well, while they were home dealing with tantrums and laundry and the endless grind of parenting. My happiness was an insult to their sacrifice. We exchanged room numbers and made plans to have breakfast together. Walking back to my suite that night, I felt lighter than I had in months, maybe even years. Christmas morning arrived with brilliant sunshine and calm seas. I ordered breakfast on my balcony, fresh fruit, eggs Benedict, mimosas. I wore my favorite sundress and my new pearl earrings. The ship was sailing toward our next port, and the ocean stretched out endlessly in every direction. I turned my phone on long enough to post one more photo, me on my balcony, breakfast spread before me, the ocean sparkling behind me. Caption: Christmas morning done right. Then I turned it off again, and spent the day exactly how I wanted. I took a yoga class on the upper deck. I read half a book in a deck chair. I had lunch at the sushi restaurant and dinner at the steakhouse. I watched a comedy show in the theater and danced at the deck party until midnight. Over the next week, I barely looked at my phone. I was too busy living. I went ziplining through the rainforest in Barbados. I swam with sea turtles in Aruba. I learned a salsa dance from a charming instructor named Carlos in St. Lucia. I got a little too sunburned on a catamaran excursion and didn't care because I was too busy laughing with a group of solo travelers I'd befriended. But curiosity is a powerful thing. 3 days after Christmas, while the ship was docked in Curacao, I made the mistake of turning my phone on to upload photos to cloud storage. The messages flooded in immediately, an avalanche of guilt and manipulation. Mom had sent a series of increasingly emotional texts. The first few were gentle. Hope you're having a nice time, sweetheart. We missed you at dinner. Then they escalated. Your father barely ate anything. He kept looking at your empty chair. And finally, I don't understand how you could abandon your family like this after everything we've done for you. That last one made my jaw clench. After everything they'd done for me, like raising me was some kind of favor I was supposed to repay by accepting whatever treatment they doled out. Jennifer had sent photos, lots of them. The whole family gathered around the Christmas tree, the kids opening presents, Tyler carving the turkey, everyone wearing matching pajamas, except for one conspicuous gap, where I would have been. The message that accompanied them was brief. Look what you missed. It was manipulative, calculated, and for about 30 seconds, I felt a sharp pang of regret. Then I looked around at where I was, standing on a dock in Willemstad, the colorful Dutch colonial buildings reflected in the impossibly blue water, the sun warm on my shoulders, freedom humming in my veins. I opened my camera roll and found my favorite photo from the past few days. It was from the sea turtle excursion in Aruba. I was in the water, snorkel mask pushed up on my head, grinning at the camera, while a massive green sea turtle swam just a few feet away. My face was lit up with pure, uncomplicated joy. I posted it with a caption. Sometimes what you miss isn't as important as what you find. Petty? Maybe. But I was tired of being the bigger person. Patricia found me at lunch that day, sliding into the seat across from me at an outdoor cafe. You've got that look again. What look? The one that says you checked your phone and your family is trying to ruin your vacation remotely. I showed her the messages. She read them with increasing disgust, her lips pressed into a thin line. Classic manipulation tactics, she said, handing my phone back. Make you feel guilty for their choices. Your mother's particularly good at it. She's had years of practice.
She paused.
Here's a question. If the situation was reversed, if they'd excluded you, and then you sent them crying messages about how hurt you were, what would they say? I thought about it. They tell me I was being overly sensitive, that I needed to understand their perspective. That family means making sacrifices.
Exactly.
But when you're the one setting boundaries, suddenly you're selfish and cruel. The double standard is the point, Melissa. It keeps you in line. We spent the afternoon exploring Curacao together. Patricia had a way of making everything an adventure. We got lost in a floating market, bargained with vendors over handmade jewelry, drank rum punch at a beach bar while locals played dominoes nearby. She told me about her engineering career, how she'd been one of only 3 women in her graduating class in 1981, how she'd fought for every promotion and still made less than her male colleagues. I spent so much of my life trying to prove I belonged, she said as we watched the sunset paint the sky orange and purple, trying to show I was just as good, just as dedicated, just as worthy. And you know what I learned? The people who don't value you will never be convinced. You can't argue someone into respecting you. So, what do? You respect yourself enough to walk away. You find people who see your worth without you having to justify it. You build a life that doesn't require their approval to be valid. She clinked her glass against mine. Like you're doing right now. That conversation stayed with me as we sailed toward our next destination. I kept my phone mostly off, checking it only briefly each evening to let my assistant know I was alive. The messages from my family continued, but I noticed a shift in tone. Less guilt-tripping, more confusion. They genuinely couldn't understand why I wasn't engaging, why their usual tactics weren't working. Jennifer even sent a message that revealed more than she probably intended. I don't know what you want from us. We apologized. We explained our reasoning. Why are you being so stubborn about this? The thing was, I didn't want anything from them anymore. And that was the real change. I'd spent so many years seeking their validation, trying to prove my life had value, even without the traditional markers of success they prioritized. But somewhere between the sea turtles and the salsa lessons and the deep conversations with Patricia, I'd stopped caring about their approval. I was having the time of my life, and that was enough. On New Year's Eve morning, I woke up to a different kind of message from Dad. Unusually. Your mother and I would like to talk when you get home. Really talk. No ambush, no lectures. Just the three of us. Will you consider it? It was the most direct communication I'd had from him in years. Dad usually let Mom handle all family drama, preferring to hide behind his newspaper or find urgent projects in the garage. His reaching out meant something had shifted. I typed back, I'll think about it. That evening, dressed in the navy sequin dress I'd saved for this exact occasion, I felt like a different person than the one who had boarded this ship 2 weeks ago. Stronger, clearer, less willing to accept crumbs and call it love. I'd connected with Marcus, a divorced architect from Seattle who made terrible dad jokes. Rachel, a nurse from Chicago, taking a much-needed break after a brutal year in the ICU. David and James, a couple from Austin, celebrating their engagement. We'd become our own little family, meeting for breakfast, exploring ports together, playing cards in the piano bar late at night. They made the trip better than I could have imagined. We exchanged Instagram handles and promised to keep in touch. On New Year's Eve, we all dressed up and had dinner together, laughing until our faces hurt, toasting to new beginnings and leaving toxic people behind. As midnight approached, we gathered on the deck with champagne. The ship was anchored off the coast of Grand Cayman, and the island was setting off fireworks. The sky exploded in gold and silver and blue. We counted down together, shouting over the wind and the waves, and when midnight hit, I felt genuinely happy for the first time in months. I took a selfie of all of us, arms around each other, fireworks in the background, and posted it with a caption, New Year, new family, new priorities. Here's to 2024. The cruise ended on January 3rd. I didn't want it to be over. Saying goodbye to Marcus, Rachel, David, and James felt harder than I expected. We hugged in the terminal, exchanged final promises to visit each other, and then I was in an Uber heading home with 2 suitcases full of dirty laundry and souvenirs. My townhouse felt different when I walked in. Not smaller this time, but mine. Completely and utterly mine. I didn't have to host anyone or accommodate anyone or tone down my decorations because someone's kids might break something. This was my space, and I could do whatever I wanted with it. The return to real life was jarring in ways I hadn't anticipated. My mail was piled up. My plants were barely alive, and my refrigerator smelled questionable. But even dealing with these mundane disasters, I felt different. Calmer. More centered. I spent that first evening going through 2 weeks of mail and listening to voicemails I'd ignored. Most were from my family, of course, but there was one from my friend Tasha that made me smile. Girl, I saw your cruise photos, and I am living. Your sister called me asking if I thought you were having a breakdown. I told her the only thing breaking down was her audacity. Call me when you're back. I want details. Tasha and I had been friends since college, and she'd watched my family dynamics with increasing frustration over the years. She was the one who had pointed out, during Jennifer's baby shower, that I'd organized and paid for everything while Jennifer complained it wasn't fancy enough. She'd been telling me to set boundaries for years. I called her back immediately. So, she demanded, how is it? And please tell me you're not about to cave and apologize to them. It was incredible, I said, a slow smile spreading across my face. And no, I'm not apologizing. Why would I? Because you always do. Every time they pull this crap, you end up being the one who smooths things over and pretends everything's fine. She wasn't wrong. I had a pattern of being the family peacemaker, the one who absorbed tension and made myself smaller so everyone else could be comfortable. It was exhausting, and I'd done it for so long I'd forgotten it was a choice. Not this time, I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. We talked for over an hour. I told her about Patricia, about the sea turtles, about Marcus and Rachel and the others. I told her about the messages from my family, about Jennifer's manipulative photos, about Mom's guilt trips. Good for you, Tasha said fiercely when I finished. Seriously, Mel, I'm proud of you. You finally chose yourself. It's weird though, I admitted. I keep waiting to feel guilty, and I just don't. That's called growth, babe, she laughed. That's what it feels like when you stop letting toxic people dictate your emotions. After we hung up, I made myself dinner and settled on the couch with my laptop. I needed to sort through cruise photos and start thinking about work tomorrow, but instead, I found myself looking at flights. Destinations I'd always wanted to visit. Places I could go without asking permission or coordinating with anyone else's schedule. Iceland, New Zealand, Japan, Portugal. The world felt suddenly, dizzyingly open. My phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. Mom says Dad wants to talk to you. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. I stared at the message, feeling that old, familiar pressure to be accommodating, to make things easy for everyone else. But Patricia's voice echoed in my head. You can't live your life trying to meet other people's expectations. I typed back, I'll talk to Dad when I'm ready. Not before. His response came quickly. You're being selfish. Maybe, I typed back, or maybe I'm finally being fair to myself. He didn't respond after that. I spent the weekend unpacking and organizing photos. I had hundreds of them. Me snorkeling. Me at sunset on various beaches. Me laughing with my cruise friends. Me living my life without apology. Monday morning, I went back to work refreshed in a way I hadn't been in years. My coworkers commented on my tan, asked about the trip. I showed them photos and told them stories, and it felt good to share the joy rather than the hurt that had prompted it. My phone had been mostly quiet since I'd gotten home. I'd ignored the family group chat entirely, but Tuesday evening, Dad called. Melissa, we need to talk. Hi, Dad. What's up? Your mother is very upset with you. She says you've been ignoring everyone. I've been on vacation, Dad. That's kind of the point. You didn't call on Christmas. You didn't respond to anyone's messages. Dad, I said, my voice steady. I was explicitly told I wasn't welcome at Christmas. Why would I call?
He sighed.
That long-suffering sigh he'd perfected over years of mediating between Mom and us kids. Your sister says she didn't mean it that way.
She meant it exactly that way.
She said Christmas was for parents only. I'm not a parent. The math is pretty simple. Don't be difficult. I'm not being difficult. I'm setting boundaries. Jennifer made a decision, and I respected it by making my own plans. Now, everyone's upset that I actually went through with it instead of sitting home feeling sorry for myself. It's more complicated than that.
Is it?
Because from here, it seems pretty straightforward. They didn't want me there, so I went somewhere else. Somewhere amazing, actually. Best Christmas I've had in years. Another sigh. Your mother wants you to come to dinner this weekend to talk. I'll think about it. I hung up, feeling drained. The cruise high was already wearing off, replaced by the familiar weight of family obligation and guilt. But I was different now. Something had shifted during those 15 days at sea. I didn't know my misery. I didn't have to shrink myself to make them comfortable. And I definitely didn't have to accept being treated as less than because my life didn't look like theirs. Saturday arrived, and I drove to my parents' house with my stomach in knots. Jennifer's minivan was already in the driveway. Tyler's SUV, too. Of course, they'd be there. This was an ambush, thinly disguised as dinner. Mom answered the door with a tight, brittle smile. Melissa, come in. The living room felt like a courtroom. Jennifer and Brad sat stiffly on the love seat, Tyler and Katie on the couch, Mom and Dad in their respective chairs. The only open seat was the ottoman in the dead center, facing everyone else. I remained standing. If this is an intervention, you should know I'm not interested, I stated, my voice calm. Sit down, Melissa, Mom said, her voice strained. I'm good here, thanks. Jennifer jumped right in, her voice shrill. Do you have any idea how you made everyone feel with those posts? Mom cried on Christmas morning. You made your choice and I made mine, I retorted, matching her tone. I failed to see how my vacation is responsible for anyone's tears. You were flaunting it. Jennifer's voice rose, rubbing it in our faces that you were off on some luxury cruise while we were here with family. I was excluded from that family gathering, remember?
My voice was icy now.
You said Christmas was for parents only. I am not a parent. Therefore, I was not welcome. I found somewhere else to be. How is that flaunting anything? Tyler cut in, his tone more measured, trying to be the voice of reason. I think what Jennifer means is that it felt intentional, like you were trying to make us feel bad. Make you feel bad, Tyler? My voice cracked with suppressed emotion. You told me I couldn't come to Christmas. Do you understand how that felt? I have been present for every single important moment in your kids' lives. I've babysat. I've done school pickups. I've paid for birthday parties. And when it came time for the biggest family holiday of the year, I got told I wasn't inner circle enough anymore. We never said that. Jennifer protested, throwing her hands up. You said Christmas was for parents and kids. I shot back, my voice rising. That is literally a circle that excludes me. There's no other way to interpret it. Mom spoke up then, her voice wobbly. We just thought it would be nice to have a smaller celebration. You didn't have to make such a production of being excluded. I didn't make a production, I said, the words cutting. I made plans. Good plans. Plans that involved me being happy instead of sitting home alone, wondering why I'm not good enough for my own family. Nobody said you weren't good enough, Dad said quietly, finally interjecting. Didn't you, though? My eyes met his. What other message am I supposed to take from Christmas is only for people with kids? My life has value, Dad. My presence has value. And if you all can't see that, then I'm going to find people who do. The silence was deafening. Jennifer looked like she wanted to argue more, but couldn't find the words. Tyler stared at his hands. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. I met amazing people on that cruise, I continued, my voice steadier now, resolute. People who included me in their New Year's celebration without needing me to justify my worth based on my reproductive status. People who laughed with me and shared meals with me and made me feel like I mattered. That's what family is supposed to do. So, we're not your family anymore? Mom's voice cracked. You're my blood relatives. But family is about how you treat people. And right now, my cruise friends are treating me better than any of you have in months. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. Behind me, I heard chairs scraping, voices calling my name. I didn't stop. The drive home felt different this time. Lighter. I'd said what I needed to say. I'd drawn my line in the sand. What happened next was up to them. 3 days passed with no contact. Then Jennifer sent me a text. Can we talk? Just us. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our houses. She looked tired, older somehow. Motherhood and guilt were aging her faster than her expensive skincare routine could combat. I'm sorry, she said as soon as we sat down, not meeting my eyes. I didn't realize how it sounded when I said that about Christmas. I was just overwhelmed with planning and logistics, and it seemed easier to keep it small. Easier for who? Asked, my voice flat. Certainly not for me. I know. I see that now. She stirred her latte. Brad pointed out that we were being exclusive at the time. I got defensive, but then I saw your cruise photos, and I just felt jealous. You looked so happy. I was happy.
I am happy.
I want you at Christmas next year if you'll come. I'll think about it. She flinched. That's fair. We talked for another hour. She apologized more, explained her reasoning, admitted she'd been thoughtless. It wasn't perfect, and I wasn't ready to forgive completely, but it was a start. Tyler sent a similar apology via text. Mom called and cried and promised things would be different. Dad sent his usual terse message. Glad you had a good trip. But here's the thing I learned on that cruise. I don't need their approval anymore. I don't need to contort myself into shapes that make them comfortable. I have value exactly as I am. Kids or no kids, married or single, fitting their definition of family or not. This Christmas, I'm taking another cruise. Already booked. Mediterranean. This time, 3 weeks. I invited Mom and Dad. Actually, just the 3 of us. Dad said yes immediately. Mom's still thinking about it. Jennifer asked if she could come too, just her, leaving Brad with the kids. I told her the ship was adults only anyway, so her kids wouldn't have been welcome. She didn't appreciate the irony, but I did. Tyler's family is planning their own Christmas again this year. And you know what? That's fine. I'm planning mine too. And mine involves Italian coastlines, Greek islands, and zero guilt. Life's too short to spend it with people who make you feel small. The ocean taught me that. The ocean, and a single group chat message that tried to exclude me from Christmas, but instead gave me the push I needed to finally choose myself. Best decision I ever made. My phone still gets notifications from that family group chat. These days, they're gentler, more inclusive. Invitations extended with actual thought behind them. But I've learned something truly valuable. I don't have to accept every invitation just because we share DNA. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just living your life so fully and joyfully that other people realize what they're missing. What about you? Have you ever had to choose yourself over family expectations? Or cut ties to protect your peace? Tell me your story in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to hear what you think.